Meteor shower! Oh no!
Hey everybody, I'm going to give you a little tutorial on the Epic rules and the GR75 Rebel Transport. If you're not that familiar with it, if you just have some questions, hopefully I'll answer them here. So the first thing I want to talk about is deployment. If this is my edge of the board here, you want to have him, he's got to be touching the back side, but you can have him facing whichever way you want. Put a corner anywhere, similar to the large ship rules. And for clarification, this is a huge ship. This is a large ship. Even though you think large, any of the Millennium Falcon, the Slave One, and the Lambda Shuttle are all large ships. These guys and above are huge ships, and of course, your regular guys are small ships. So for setup, you can just have to have one side, it has to be touching the back corner. Next thing I want to talk about is movement. We have this fancy movement dial here. And basically moving straight is pretty easy. You have 1, a 2, a 3, and a 4 here. He has 2 bases. So what we'll do is we'll take the 1 and line it up to the back of the front base and slide him forward the number that he's moving. So if he's doing a 1 forward, it actually works better if you flip this outward. If he's doing a 1 forward, we line this up, and actually I'm going to bring the camera a little closer. We line up the back end of the front base right here with the back line of the 1, and then we just slide forward until the back of that base lines up. Now, normally I'd be holding both pieces still, but we just basically slide it up 1 forward. If we were doing a 2 forward, we would line it up. Again, we have the back of the front base lined up with that rear white line, and we move it up until there's 1, and then there's 2. I don't know if you can see it right there. We moved up 2 whole spaces, and he can go all the way up to a 4 forward on his movement dial. That's as far forward as he can go in one movement. Which, if you look at it, that's about the equivalent of a large ship doing a 1 forward. They'd go forward and then they'd be about right there as far as how much he's moved. So they're really, even at his fastest, he's a slow ship. Now, turning is a little different. If you look at the back of this thing, you have this little notch right here. Now, the only turn maneuvers these guys have is a 1 bank and a 2 bank. So what we'll do is, whichever direction you're going, you use that same corner and a 1 bank. You see, this fits pretty snug right there. I imagine these things are going to get worn out though, but it fits pretty snug. If he's doing a 1 bank, you then slide this in until it hits the 1. If he's doing a 2 bank, you line it up, you slide it in snug, and you move forward until it hits the 2. And that is, so the difference between a 1 and a 2 isn't that much. Now, one thing that's really important, let me set the camera back up and I'm going to show you something really interesting about this movement. So, an interesting thing about this guy is when he turns, normally you take a normal base ship and you turn him and he's going to be like this. If you have somebody next to him, you usually don't have to worry about hitting the person next to him. But this guy has a really big, he moves kind of like a whale. And the back of his ship can end up going to the side more. So watch, it'll work better from this angle. Watch where he is, okay? And just for clarity, I'm going to put these old Decipher Star Wars cards on either side of him. Okay? Now, I'm going to do a 2 bank with him. Well, if I can manage to do it without screwing up too much. Okay, so that's where he is. Now, just to be clear, I'm going to do a 2 bank. Boom. Now look how much he overlapped right here. What's interesting about that is if you had people that were lined up on the side of him, or if you basically don't plan to fly another ship right next to him, because these guys are going to move last. He's going to basically fly and crash into him, because when he turns, he fishtails a little bit and moves his butt quite a bit. So that's important to know. Being that we're on that step, the next step is going to be order. This guy has a pilot skill of 3, but it's important to know that that pilot skill of 3 is really only important when determining huge ship movement, because huge ships always do everything last. So even if this guy had a pilot skill of 1, he's still going to move. Well, he's going to move first, and then the pilot skills of 9 will then move later, and then we'll defer to the huge ships, and then they will do their movement last. And if there's multiple 3s, then it's settled by initiative order. But that's important to know. The other thing is energy. So if you haven't seen the movement dial yet, they have, depending on how they move, they're going to gain energy. And there's the movement dial, is right there. Now, if you'll notice a 4 forward, the little symbols dictate how much energy they get. A 4 forward gets no energy, a 3 forward gets 1, a 2 forward gets 2, and a 1 forward gets 3. And then the turns get a little bit less as well. So basically, you're incentivized to move as little as possible if you're trying to get energy. Now, the purple 4 on here means that is his max energy. If you notice, he has no attack. Instead of an attack, he has a purple 4. Purple 4 means he can have 4 maximum energy at any one time. If he ever has more than that, it's immediately discarded. Unless, of course, there's some other card that increases his max energy. Now, energy does not go away. So I'll play this out for you, essentially. We'll assume he does a 1 forward. I'll line this up. I'll move him 1 forward. And according to that dial, according to the 1 forward, he'll get 3 energy. So we'll put 1, 2, 3 on his base. Plenty of room on the base for stuff. He's got 3 energy. Then before his action step, he's got an energy step. So he can do, if he's got upgrade cards that require energy, to ban a gas, for example, or this comms booster, he can spend it. It says energy. Can we focus on that? Energy. Spend 1 extra energy, or spend 1 energy to remove all stress tokens from a friendly ship, and then a focus. It's a really cool card. I like this card. Gives you basically, that takes the place of actions. You're not doing actions during your energy. You can do an action later, but it gives you kind of an extra action. So after the energy step, let's say you do that, you spend 1, let's say you've got 2 left, then you can do your action. Now these guys have 4 totally different actions. I'm going to talk about those in a minute, but you can't do any normal things. Like, they don't have focus, they don't have evade, they don't have target lock. If they ever get any of those old style things, like if you have Kyle Katarn and he goes to pass a focus token onto here, it's immediately discarded. These new ships cannot even be the recipient of they can be recipient of it, but it'll just go away. So they have no use for any of the old targets.
So here's the card. They have no attack, and it even says in the rule book that they cannot attack. So even if you were to give them some kind of weapon, it would require a rules upgrade, because they don't even get a chance to attack. They have 0 agility, so they're not rolling any defense dice, but they are allowed to roll defense dice if they're at range 3 or if there's an asteroid in between. So they are able to get those normal defense modifiers. They just have a base of 0 agility. They start with 8 hull and 4 shields. They can go higher than that. One of the cards that comes with them is called a combat retrofit that gives them more shields and more hull. So here's so now actions are important to know. They have 4 completely new actions. This first one is called Recover. It's a very useful one if you're under fire. Basically, but you have to have energy to use it. So if you decide to use the Recover, you remove all of your energy tokens, and for every energy token that was removed this way, you can regain 1 shield, up to the maximum. So if your max is 4, then you can only go up to 4 shields. So in this case, I've got 2. I can be like, boom, I'm going to get 2 shields back. Boom, that's my action. Keep in mind, you can do actions after you've also done energy. I don't want to call them energy actions because that's going to confuse somebody, but using energy abilities, I guess you would say, during your that in-between step. And it's kind of good that these guys get extra abilities through the energy, because this guy has no attack, so he's a great support ship. He's got a lot of things he can do, and these abilities are excellent examples of that. So this lets him recover shields. If you're moving slow, you can recover a lot of shields. You can get up to three shields back every turn, which is fantastic. The next one is Reinforce. Reinforce lets you to put a little green token on one of the parts of your ship, either the front or the back. As you can see, there are 2 parts separated by this blue line. I'll talk about that more here in a minute. And Reinforce lets you basically add an automatic evade roll to any attack that's made against that section of the ship. So if I put Reinforce in the back, anybody who attacks me, I automatically get 1 evade in addition to any roll that I may or may not be able to do, which usually is no roll. But that's fantastic, especially if you're getting more than 1 ship attacking you. It's a fantastic option to go with. But it's important to note that you can only put that on 1 section of the ship. So if your back is to the enemies and they're like this, then sure, reinforce in the back. You wouldn't want to reinforce in the front because they're going to be shooting the back. Now there's certain things that'll prevent them from shooting one side or the other, but I'll talk about that in a minute. The next action is Coordinate. Coordinate is basically a free action to a friendly ship within range 1 or 2. So basically passing the action to somebody else, kind of like Lando Calrissian in a way. It works. It's not my favorite action that they have, but it's good if you have nothing else. And then Jam. Jam is an interesting one. Basically, this is the only offensive thing they have, and this puts 2 stress tokens on an enemy ship within range 1 or 2. So that's kind of cool. It wouldn't work too well against people like Sun Tirfel, or Tycho or whatnot, but yeah. So it's still pretty cool, though. It's a good idea to be able to give people stress tokens. It gives you something offensive to do. I think the best things they have is Recover and Reinforce. I think these are the 2 that are mostly usable, because they're defensive. Maybe that's just because I played a game today where they were getting just wailed on. But it's a pretty good spread of abilities. You have a lot of options there. So that's the card. 30 points actually is not too bad if you do just a naked one. And you can give them 2 crew, and then 3 more upgrades. So I'm going to talk about this blue line that separates the front and back half. And before I talk about that, I want to go back to the free action that you can give, Coordinate, where you can give a free action to another ship. We did that wrong in a recent game I just played, where we were giving free actions to other GR75s, and there's a rule that I just read that says the huge ships cannot perform free actions. So that's actually really important to know if you're trying to do combos and other things. So anyway, back to this section here. So this blue line is important. Not only does it separate the front and back half, but it helps determine what people can and cannot hit. To try and simplify, I'm going to use this interceptor here. Now, coming out a side like this, he can shoot either the front or the back. But it becomes difficult if you're coming at from the side, because suppose he's like this, and here comes in the interceptor, and he wants to attack the front section. Let's say he has a target lock on the front section and wants to attack the front section some more. Well, he may not be able to. And the way we determine this is we measure from the center peg of the attacking ship to the center peg of the section he wants to target. And if the line crosses that blue line, which it does right there, then that front section is obstructed by the back section and he cannot attack it. So basically, this interceptor cannot attack the front section because from center to center it crosses the blue line. And so he has to attack the back section. Now, if it were turned like that, he could get it. Now, it's not exactly centered there, but you get the idea, right? That's what the blue line is for. If the blue line would obstruct this center peg to center peg line, now normally we don't measure center peg to center peg. We normally measure closest point, but this is the exception. Center peg to center peg. If it crosses the blue line, you can't get that section. You have to go you have to go to this section. So that kind of gives you an idea. Here you can, here you can't. Here you can, here you can't. So, that's what the blue line is for. Why would you want to attack different sections? I already mentioned maybe a target lock. You have to say which part you're targeting it on. They also have damage decks. So this ship comes with a damage deck that's split in half. It's got a front section and back section damage deck. They all have their own independent crits. And granted, he's only got 8 hull points for the whole thing, but that counts. Maybe you get 4 in the back and 4 in the front. As we learn which crit cards do what, we're going to want to do more specific things. Like maybe you're focusing on the front section because there's a good crit you want to get on there. You must spend 1 energy to perform any action. So maybe you want, he's jamming your ships and you want to stop him from being able to do that, and you're hoping to get a secondary drive failure. They each have direct hits, hull breach. I got a crit before on the back that basically limited my engine damage. Yes, engine damage basically restricts how fast you can go. And if you go too fast, you don't get to perform an action. So, there's going to be some strategy that comes out of that, but I think the bigger part is go wherever you have the closest shot. If you can be range 1 of the back, then you can be range 1 of the back section. Even if you got a shot on both sections, probably go with a shot you have range 1 of. So this would be range 1 right there, and then the other section would be range 2. So you'd want to take the range 1 shot. So there you go. That's your sections. That's what they mean. So the the transport, the GR-75 also acts as an obstruction. And what that means is basically it's kind of like a big old asteroid as far as targeting. Let's say that this Lambda wants to shoot that interceptor. Well, this guy is in the way, so that interceptor is going to get an extra defense die because he is blocking the way. Now this is a double-edged sword because it works both ways. If that's my interceptor, and I have the GR-75, I know I wouldn't ever have a transport in it. Let's pretend this is an X-wing. Use your imaginations. Let's pretend it's an X-wing, and I'm chasing down this Lambda. Well, I'm gonna have to shoot through my own ship, so I'm providing my own obstruction, which is interesting. But it's a double-edged sword. He's a great support ship, so maybe you want to fly him in the front to try and get him to absorb as many hits as he can. He's really a tank. Then you can put, maybe you want to fly him sideways on the map and have your guys behind him, so they get extra defense because any shots are having to pass through, or you're going to get extra defense die, but you're also going to shoot at the same disadvantage. So, it's just something to think about. Another cool tidbit about obstruction here is that in some of the epic play, there's a new rule that says you can use this guy in place of 3 asteroids, and he'd be just a floating piece of space junk, but you can set him down there and he takes the place of 3 asteroids and behaves exactly like an asteroid. So that's really cool. If you want to spice up your games a little bit, use a GR-75 in place of 3 asteroids. So that's fun. And the last thing I want to talk about is collisions. These guys, while they don't have any weapons, they do have a huge offensive capability, and that is ramming speed. Basically, if they are to overlap any ship, they're going to destroy it, with the exception of other huge ships. If he moves, suppose he moves and he would be right there, and he would basically overlap their bases, they're instantly destroyed. It doesn't matter how much hull or shields they have. If he is to overlap any small or large ship, they're instantly destroyed. And he suffers damage to his fore section. So this guy would be destroyed, this guy would be destroyed, he'd end up here. Now there is a downfall to this. He does take some damage, so he has to roll a die, a red attack die for every small ship, and 2 red attack dies for every large ship that was destroyed. So in this case, it would be 1 there, and then 2 there. And then he would have to take all that damage to the fore section. So in this case, it would just be, heck, 1 damage just to take out 2. Woo! Alright. But you get the idea. So this guy could take out an entire TIE swarm if he was able to get in position. So that's really cool. The other thing is, if you have 2 huge ships rather that ram into each other, it's similar to normal ships bumping, but he still gets to do his action, and both ships are dealt a face-up damage card. So you're not rolling dice, but you're basically getting a crit that goes past shields. So kind of like a proton bomb, because they can't roll for it because they're so big. They're going to hit. So that's unfortunate. And the last part is not, when he hits them, he kills them, but it's not a double-edged. It's not both ways. If he flies into him, he doesn't instantly die. So if a smaller or a large ship fly into a huge ship, it's treated kind of like if they hit another ship, so they would just stop. But they have to roll for damage. So yes, they roll 1 attack die and suffer either if it's a crit or a regular hit. So so basically kind of like an asteroid, but I believe they'll still get to shoot because they're not going to be stuck on it. So yeah. So basically, you don't want to hit this thing. Plus, especially if you hit right here, then all he's got to do is turn this way, and you don't want to bump these guys anywhere near the front, because they will just go and wipe you out. So hopefully that answers some questions. If I didn't cover anything important, leave it in the comment section. I'll try to answer it. But that's the GR75 in a nutshell. Hope you liked it.